What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for Your Overwatch. Today, we're going to be talking about maps and game modes. The Halloween seasonal event might be overshadowing some really impactful things Jeff Kaplan spoke about in the developer update last week, and I think, before we get too hopped up on candy, we should take a look back at some really important issues about maps and modes. In Overwatch, each map has its own gameplay mode, so I'll use the term map a lot in this video, but I also mean gameplay modes as well, seeing as they're one and the same. Okay, let's get into it. Jeff specifically said that they have more maps with current game modes in the works, but I'm more interested in the new stuff. I'll explain why later. Jeff explained that they had a few prototype game modes they're working on internally at Blizzard that might not even make it out at testing. We all know that Blizzard has a standard of excellence and isn't going to risk something that might not be up to snuff, but that worries me. Jeff also hinted at what is the most important things to them when making new modes, and this is the area that I want to highlight. He said that new maps and modes can't be gimmicky, nor feel that one hero is too strong or too weak on them. Now, to the naked eye, that answer might seem like the correct way to go. Why wouldn't you want every map to fit all the heroes and playstyles? This is Overwatch, right? Let's have everything work. Unfortunately, this design philosophy has a few negative side effects. First and foremost, the most obvious one to me is that by making every map safe enough to not facilitate one playstyle more than another causes every map to be shaved down to almost be identical in each respective mode. To be fair, I think they've done a great job balancing the current modes we have, bar a few lingering criticisms, but overall the modes play better than ever and may still improve. However, I don't really see much value in making more quote-unquote new maps that are still in effect reskins of the same ones we have. The art design is always great, they always look different, but the gameplay and progression of areas is barely any different each time. From map to map, I start to feel like we're stuck in some BioShock Infinite multiverse. There's always a Streets phase, there's always a pit to fall into on King of the Hill, there's always a Hanzo main. This is why it's hard for me to say what my favorite map is, because really, every capture point has the same concepts reskinned, tight choke point at the front, close spawns to be with some geometry the attackers can scale. Each payload is similar too. I mix up Hollywood Streets phase and Route 66 Streets phase because they're so similar. One's a bit dustier than the other, I guess, but in effect they're the same. The good news is the sameness of these maps still play very well, but I think we have enough of what we already have, and Blizzard is drastically underestimating the power that map design can have in balancing Overwatch and offering a more varied play experience as the game grows. It feels like Blizzard is taking more inspiration from MOBA games than shooter games. In MOBA games, the character selections mold the battlefield, not the map. There's always 3 lanes, always creeps marching down them in regimented order, but this works in MOBAs because there's often tens if not hundreds of heroes with vastly different skill sets to shape the battlefield. But in shooter games, the maps are what change play dramatically, as the weapon set is often more limited than a MOBA hero pool. On this channel, we come from Quake, Gears, COD, Battlefield, and most recently CSGO, but no matter what shooter game you've played, I can almost assure you the maps were more varied than they are in Overwatch. The major benefit that most other shooter games take from having more varied maps rather than very similar maps is to do the exact opposite of what Jeff Kaplan says they're trying to do. Not to make every item in the game equally viable at all times, but instead give each item a time to shine. This philosophy has an every dog has its day type fairness to the map pool. Yes, on some maps certain weapons and strategies do see more power than another. But instead of seeing that as a problem, it's seen as an opportunity for varied gameplay from map to map. For instance, in CSGO, nobody ever used the sawed-off shotgun, except for JW on the top of Dropdown on Cobblestone during Fnatic's Reign of Terror in 2015. The weapon never changed, but the map geometry opened up a playstyle to emerge. Some maps are better for double op, some for force buys, some for rushes, some for slow play, etc., etc. And Blizzard really shouldn't be unfamiliar with this idea because the pro scene of StarCraft Brood War was balanced purely on map design alone, giving different benefits and weaknesses to the different races of that game without requiring patches to the mechanics. It isn't reasonable to expect a couple dozen heroes to be balanced on every map, but with enough variation in the maps, we can smooth out the usage potential of the characters far more easily. This is a tool that Blizzard may not have command over yet, seeing as this is their first shooter game. But imagine this. There's plenty of ways we could give Widowmaker a time to shine on a map or two without having her overpowered on the rest of them. It isn't so much that Widow is worthless as a hero, it mainly is that every relevant engagement on every map is medium to close range, or one Winston leap away from being close range. Da-da-da-da! On a hypothetical map where Widow works, would other characters be less viable? Yes, of course. But you know what? They get their time to be viable on the rest of the maps. And that's how you make it fair. Not by trying to have everything viable at the same time, but having different opportunities from map to map. Regardless, even with the very safe and similar design philosophy that we have with the current maps, I don't think their goal of maximizing viability is even being achieved. In fact, hero viability has shifted greatly with each patch. We've been playing the same maps for months, but from patch to patch, the meta has seen a serious shift like 5 times, each time knocking some heroes out and lifting others up. The truth of the matter is, this will always be the case anyway, because there is no such thing as perfect hero balancing, but you can mitigate hero usage by having more varied map and mode design, so even in metas where some strategies are deemed weaker, they may still be viable based purely on the maps. But if all the maps within each mode are basically the same, it's hard to imagine ever having a wider pool of viable heroes than we have now. We'll just keep playing musical chairs of who's on top. Here's some more examples. The more complex a map is, the easier it might be to hide a teleporter. The longer sight lines, Widowmaker gets better. More rooftops, the Shimada brothers wall running will see more use. And these principles go on and on. McCree is deemed hands down objectively better than Soldier 76 if your aim is good enough. But if there was a map design that Soldier could exploit his ability to sprint upstairs to get to high ground, or, a mode like Capture the Flag where running is better than walking and rolling, maybe he'd have areas where he was better. It's far easier to make a wide variety of maps that allow for flavor rather than make a perfect standard one like a MOBA game, at least in a shooter context anyway. I'd rather see Blizzard take some chances with new maps and modes rather than play it safe. We already have a robust map pool. What we need now is variation, not iteration. Well, FREEDO, if you're so smart, what modes should they make? Honestly, all of them. I want Capture the Flag, Oddball, Domination, Old School, King of the Hill where the point moves. I want a single life mode. I want something new. I want everything. But most of all, I want them to try new things and let the community judge it rather than make these decisions on their own. Will Tracer be OP and Capture the Flag? Fine, make another mode where she isn't, but I'd argue we already have that. She already isn't as good on a lot of payload maps, and that's the key distinction. Even using this safe strategy to map design, we already allow many heroes to be too good or useless in the current map pool. That isn't something to be afraid of, it's something to embrace and expand upon. It seems to me that Blizzard is making the perfect be the enemy of the good, but in FPS games there is no perfect maps. Just like in MOBAs or fighting games, there isn't perfect character balance. I don't think us as players overall have an unreasonable expectation of perfection like they do. We really love the game and would rather have some maps be crazy rather than boring and samey. And that's the reason I'm speaking up now, before all the content is made. There's still time to change this. I don't want another Eichenwald, which basically plays like every other hybrid map. I don't want more of the same. What we have now is fine. Now is time to expand and test what Overwatch can do. I think if they play too safe and are too afraid to make mistakes, that itself will be a mistake and will make the game decline. What do you guys think? I love reading your comments on that stuff. We have recently reached over 100,000 subscribers, so oftentimes it's difficult to respond to many of you, but I do try to read every single comment. If you agree with me on this and want Blizzard to develop new modes that expand on the gameplay rather than replicate what we already have, please hit like on the video. I'd like to see this get a bit of traction, and maybe we can affect the game. Who knows? If you aren't already subscribed, you should do so. We upload each and every day, and when our videos go live, our Twitch streams go live. We're trying to gear up to stream even more, but for now, we're going to keep to that. So check out our Twitch page and be sure to sign up for notifications so you can see when we are live. Sometimes we're even early. We have a Discord server where there's usually over 1,000 gamers chatting about Overwatch or grouping up to find teammates. And we have a Twitter where you can see updates, cool clips that we tweet out, as well as our video feed. All that is linked into the description. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We appreciate you watching. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.